You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I have lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. You must do the things you think you cannot do. With this motivational quote, a very good morning to all my dear students. I hope that you all are in good health. This is Shreya Jadhav welcoming you all to my e-learning channel. And today we are going to do English Grade 9 Supplementary Reading Unit 5 The Kingdom of Fools, written by Ak Ramanujan. So before starting with the reading and explanation of the chapter, let us know something about the author. Ak Ramanujan, born on 16th March 1929, died on 13th July 1993, was an Indian poet and scholar of Indian literature who wrote in both English and Kannada. Ramanujan was a poet, scholar, philologist, translator, and playwright. His academic research ranged across 5 languages such as English, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, and Sanskrit. He published his work both in classical and modern variant of this literature and argued strongly for giving local non-standard dialects of their use. Though he wrote widely and in number of genres, Ramanujan's poems are remembered as enigmatic work of startling originality, sophistication, and moving artistry. He was awarded Sahitya Akademi Award in 1999 for his collections of poems, The Collected Poems. Introduction for answers. Dear students, whenever you write down your answers, always remember to start your answer with introduction. This creates good impact. Prose. Prose name in the Kingdom of Fools. Author's name Ak Ramanujan. Genre short story. Summary. It is believed that fools are so dangerous that only very wise people can manage them. Who are the fools in the story? What happens to them? So now let us move ahead to the theme of the story. Wisdom is worshipped everywhere, where foolishness is our greatest enemy. With the help of wisdom, we can make a difference between right and wrong. When our life is in troubles, we can fight with them and make our ways with the power of wisdom. It lives with us and never dies, even if we leave this world. Obviously, the wise people are worshipped everywhere. So now, let us go through a short summary of the supplementary reading. In the kingdom of fools, both the king and the ministers were idiots. They didn't want to run things like other kings. So they decided to change night into day and day into night. One day, a guru and his disciple arrived in the city. Both of them were amazed by what they saw around them. In the evening, suddenly the whole town woke up. The two men were hungry and the shops were open. To their astonishment, they found that everything cost the same, a single dudu, that is the currency. They were delighted, but the Guru decided to leave the place, as this kingdom was a kingdom of fools and anything could happen there. But the disciple wanted to stay and wanted to enjoy the cheap food. One night, the bugler was killed when a wall fell on him while he was sneaking in at a merchant's house. His brother went to king and complained against the merchant for having built a weak wall which fell and killed his brother. The king summoned merchant and told his minister to investigate the case. The merchant blamed the bricklayer. The bricklayer pleaded that it was the dancer who was responsible, as she was going up and down and he could not keep his eyes or mind on the work. The dancing girl said that it was the jeweler who did not keep his promise, and thus he had to visit him many times. The goldsmith said that it was because of the rich merchant's order that he could not deliver the things in time. Ultimately, it was the same merchant who was called in the beginning. Finally, the king passed death sentence for the rich merchant, but he was so thin that he couldn't fit the stake. So the king ordered for a fat man for excursion. The soldiers caught the disciple who had become fat by eating a lot. The disciple remembered his guru and prayed for his help. And the wise guru arrived. The guru befooled the king and the minister that it was the most auspicious time, and whoever would die first would be the future king, and whoever would die next would be the minister. So the king decided, and the ministers decided to die on the stake. After their death, the guru and the disciple were saved. The people of the town begged them to be their king and the minister. They agreed to it and announced that now the day would be day and the night would be night, and people could get nothing for a single dudu. So, this is all about the summary of the chapter. Now, let us start with the reading and explanation of Supplementary Unit 4. In the kingdom of fools, it is believed that fools are so dangerous that only very wise people can manage them. Who are fools in the story and what happens to them? Let us read. In the kingdom of fools, both the king and the minister were idiots. They didn't want to run things like other kings. So they decided to change night into day and day into night. They ordered that everyone should be awake at night till their fields and run their businesses only after dark, and go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. The people did as they were told for fear of death. The king and the minister were delighted at the success of their project. One day, a guru and his disciple arrived in the city. It was a beautiful city. It was broad daylight, but there was no one about. Everyone was asleep, not a mouse stirring. Even the cattle had been taught to sleep by day. The two strangers were amazed by what they saw around them and wandered around town till evening, when suddenly the whole town woke up and went about its nightly business. So, over here, in the kingdom of fools, both the king and the ministers were idiots. They thought that let us run the kingdom some other way, not like how people and the kings usually used to rule. So they have decided that the day will be converted into night and the night will be converted into day. And whosoever will try to disobey the rule which was passed by the king and the ministers would be punished with death. And people fear of death, so they followed whatever the king and the ministers had advised them to do. One fine day, what happens? Guru and his disciples are arriving in the city. The city was really very beautiful, but in the broad daylight, there was no person around the town, not even rats. Even the cattle were taught to sleep during the daytime. And by looking at this thing, these two strangers were really amazed. And till evening they wandered around. And suddenly in the evening the whole town woke up for their business. The two men were hungry. Now that the shops were open, they went to buy some groceries. To their astonishment, they found that everything cost the same, a single dudu. Whether they brought a measure of rice or a bunch of bananas, it cost a dudu. The Guru and his disciple were delighted. They had never heard of anything like this. They could buy all the food they wanted for a rupee. When they had cooked and eaten, the Guru realized that this was a kingdom of fool and it wouldn't be a good idea for them to stay there. This is no place for us. Let's go, he said to his disciple. But the disciple didn't want to leave the place. Everything was cheap here. All he wanted was good, cheap food. The Guru said, they are all fools. This won't last very long. You can't tell what they'll do to you next. So now eventually what happened? That when they saw that the whole market was no working in the evening time and they were very hungry, when they went to purchase food at that time everything cost same, that was a dudu. At that time the Guru realized that this kingdom is full of fools and this is not accepted, otherwise someday they will really fall in trouble. So the Guru told that he would move away from the place. But the disciple was not ready to leave. He thought that as this is very cheap place to stay and he would get plenty of food for just a dudu, he wanted to stay. But the disciple wouldn't listen to the Guru's wisdom. He wanted to stay. The Guru finally gave up and said, do what you want. I am going. He left. The disciple stayed on, ate his fill every day, bananas and ghee and rice and wheat, and grew fat like a street side sacred bull. One bright day, the thief broke into a rich merchant's house. He had made a hole in the wall and sneaked in. And as he was carrying out his loot, the wall of the old house collapsed on his head and killed him on the spot. His brother ran to the king and complained, your Highness, when my brother was pursuing his ancient trade, a wall fell on him and killed him. This merchant is to blame. He should have built a good strong wall. You must punish the wrongdoer and compassionate the family for this injustice. The king said, justice will be done, don't worry, and at once summoned the owner of the house. So, what happened? The disciple refused that he will not go back and he will not leave this place. So, the Guru gave up and he left the place, and every day The disciple used to eat plenty of good food and he have become really very healthy. One fine day, the thief had come to rob a rich merchant's place. But somehow, as he was doing his ancient trade, what his brother told, the wall was very old and ancient and it fell upon the thief. And the thief was dead on the spot. His brother went to the king and he asked for the justice. And the rich merchant was summoned. When the merchant arrived, the king questioned him, "What's your name?" "Such and such, your highness." "Were you at home when the dead man built your house?" "Yes, my lord. He broke in, and the wall was weak. It fell on him." The accused pleads guilty. "Your wall killed this man's brother. You have murdered a man. We have to punish you." "Lord," said the helpless merchant, "I didn't put up the wall. It's really the fault of the man who built the wall. He didn't build it right. You should punish him." "Who is that?" "My lord, this wall was built in my father's time. I know the man. He is an old man now. He lives nearby." The king sent out messengers to bring the bricklayer who had built the wall. They brought him, tied hand and foot. "You there, did you build this man's wall in his father's time?" "Yes, my lord, I did." "What kind of wall is this that you built? It has fallen on a poor man and killed him." "You have murdered him. We have to punish you by death." Before the king could order the execution, the poor bricklayer pleaded, "Please listen to me before you give your orders. It's true, I built this wall and it was no good, but that was because my mind was not on it. I remember very well a dancing girl who was going up and down that street all day with her anklets jingling, and I couldn't keep my eyes or my mind on the wall I was building. You must get that dancing girl. I know where she lives." "You're right. The case deepens. We must look into it. It is not easy to judge such complicated cases. Let's get that dancer wherever she is." The dancing girl, now an old woman, came trembling to the court. "Did you walk up and down that street many years ago while this poor man was building a wall? Did you see him?" "Yes, my lord, I remember it very well." "So you did walk up and down with your anklets jingling. You were young and you distracted him, so he built a bad wall. It has fallen on a poor burglar and killed him. You have killed an innocent man. You will have to be punished." She thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait. I know why I was walking up and down the street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel. He made so many excuses, said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. That was when this bricklayer saw me. It's not my fault, my lord. It's the damned goldsmith's fault." "Poor thing, she is absolutely right," thought the king, weighing the evidence. "We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once." The king bailiffs searched for the goldsmith who was hiding in the corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. My lord, he said, I am a poor goldsmith. It's true, I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's order. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of this wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king, back to the merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He's dead. I'm innocent. So now, what happened? One night, a thief was killed when the wall fell on him while he was sneaking in a merchant's house for robbery, and he died on the spot. His brother went to the king and complained against the merchant for having built a weak wall which fell and killed his brother. The king summoned the merchant and told his ministers to investigate the case. The merchant blamed the brickmaker or the bricklayer. The bricklayer pleaded that it was the dancer who was responsible as she was going up and down and he could not keep his eyes or mind on the work. The dancing girl said that it was the jeweler who did not keep his promise, and thus he had to visit him many times. The goldsmith said that it was because of the rich merchant's order that he could not deliver the things in time. Ultimately, it was the same merchant who was called in the beginning. And finally, the king passed death sentence for rich merchant. But the merchant said that it was not really him, it was his father who had ordered the jewelry. And his father was dead and he was innocent. But the king told that he was supposed to give a decision. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. It's true. Your father is the true murderer. He is dead. But somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as all his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were the root of this horrible crime. You must die. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for execution. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the ministers that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be probably executed on the stake. He appealed the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they need to do is to find a fat man enough to feed the stake. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am a sannyasi, he cried. That may be true, but it's the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake, they said, and carried him to the place of exertion. He remembered his wise guru's words. This is a city of fools. You don't know what they will do next. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far and he could see the future as he could see the present and the past. He arrived at once and saved his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, O wisest of kings, who is greater, the guru or the disciple? Of course, the guru. No doubt about it. Why do you ask? Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor. Me first, you brought me first here. Put me to death first, not him. The guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by this behavior. He asked the guru, Why do you want to die? We choose him because we needed a fat man for the stake. You shouldn't ask me such questions. Put me to death first, replied the guru. Why? There's some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you? Asked the guru. The king gave him his solemn word. The guru took his aside out of servant's earshot and whispered to him, Do you know why we want to die right now? The two of us? We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this, or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. It's new. It has never had a criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country, and whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and ministers for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember? The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time. So he ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked in secret with his minister. It is not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. Let's go on to stake ourselves and we'll be reborn as king and ministers again. Holy men do not tell lies, he said, and the minister agreed. So he told to the executioners, We'll send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first, then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. That night the king and his ministers went secretly to the prison, released the guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants were taken to the stake and proximately executed. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. They saw Before them, the dead bodies of the king and the ministers. The city was in confusion. All night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave the town unnoticed. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. It didn't take many arguments to persuade the disciple, but it took a longer to persuade the Guru. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they would change all the old laws. From then on, night would be night and day would again be day, and you could not get anything for a dudu. It became like any other kingdom. So, at the end, what happened? So the king ordered for a fat man for execution. The soldiers caught the disciple who had become really very fat in months by eating a lot. The disciple remembered his guru and prayed for his health, and the wise guru arrived. The guru befooled the king and the minister that it was the most auspicious time, and whosoever would die first in this kingdom would be the future king, and whoever would die next would become the minister. So the king and the minister decided to die on the stake. After their death, the Guru and the disciple were saved. The people of the town begged them to be their king and the minister. They agreed to it and announced that now the day could be considered as day and the night would be considered as night. And people could not get anything for a single duru. So this is all about the reading and explanation of the chapter. I hope that you all have understood it well. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. If you still find any doubt or queries, you can comment down in the comment section below. Thank you very much.